By week's end, Alex had what he needed: evidence, witnesses, a strategy. But he didn't go public, not yet. Instead, he sent a simple message to every homeowner in Fairmont Hills. There will be a special community session this Friday night at the HOA Center. Come see who really runs this neighborhood. No threats, no drama, just a quiet storm gathering force. Alex Ramirez wasn't just coming for his car back. He was coming for justice. It was just after midnight when Chief Alex Ramirez turned into his street in Fairmont Hills. The cul-de-sac was silent, washed in amber from the street lamps. His mind buzzed with the usual post-shift fatigue. A day filled with press briefings, internal affairs meetings, and a multi-agency task force rollout. He had dealt with armed robbers and a missing child case. All he wanted now was a hot shower and a few hours of peace. But that hope died the second his headlights lit up his driveway. A hulking tow truck blocked the entrance, idling loudly, its flatbed empty. For a second, Alex thought it had the wrong address, until he saw Gavin Moss, a man he knew all too well. Gavin stood beside the truck, arms folded, clipboard in hand, smirking like a man who had just won a petty war. Alex stepped out of his cruiser, slowly, still in uniform, badge gleaming under the porch light. "Gavin," he said flatly, "what's going on?" Gavin didn't flinch. "You parked an unapproved vehicle in a common view zone. Your personal SUV HOA regulations. It's been towed." Alex's eyes narrowed. "You towed my car from my own driveway." Gavin held up his clipboard. "Violation 14A, non-compliant external decals. You've got a military support sticker on your bumper. It's not in the approved list." Alex exhaled slowly, not because he was angry, though he was, but because he knew exactly what this was: retaliation. He'd only moved into the neighborhood 6 months ago. Since then, he'd pushed back on several HOA policies, including one that tried to ban bilingual yard signs and another that quietly upped fines without a community vote. Gavin wasn't just enforcing the rules, he was sending a message. "You know," Alex said calmly, "I've had gang members look me in the eye with more courage than you." Gavin's smirk faltered, but not for long. "Look, chief or not, the rules apply to everyone. Maybe next time, pay your dues and read your notices." Alex pulled out his phone and checked his email. Sure enough, buried beneath department updates and junk mail was an HOA message titled "Urgent Notice Vehicle Violation," timestamped 2 hours ago, 2 hours. "You gave me 2 hours notice before towing my car," Gavin shrugged. "Notice is notice." Alex tilted his head, his voice low. "Where is my car?" "Impound lot off Route 9. You'll need to pay $350, plus admin fees to get it back. And the HOA's adding a $200 processing penalty." Alex chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "You towed a decorated veteran's personal car over a decal, without proper due process, and now you're charging him for the privilege." Gavin raised his brows defiant. "You don't run this neighborhood, chief. We do." For a long moment, Alex said nothing. Then he turned, walked past Gavin, and stepped onto his porch. From the mailbox, he pulled out a thick envelope from the HOA. Inside were 3 more violations, backdated with vague infractions. Porch light intensity, mailbox color deviation, landscape asymmetry. It was coordinated. It was deliberate. And now, it was personal. Alex didn't yell, didn't threaten. He just looked at Gavin over his shoulder and said, "You just made a mistake." Then he closed the door, but behind that door, Chief Alex Ramirez wasn't thinking about paying fines. He was already building a case. Chief Alex Ramirez wasn't the kind of man who barked orders or made threats. He didn't need to. His strength was precision, the kind that came from years in federal law enforcement before becoming the top cop in Fairmont Hills. And right now, that precision was aimed directly at the Fairmont Hills HOA. 2 hours after Gavin's stunt, Alex was still awake, sitting in his home office, surrounded by papers, a legal pad filled with notes, and his personal laptop open to the HOA's online portal. He wasn't just looking for a way to dispute the fine. He was looking for a pattern, and he found one. The HOA had issued 12 violations in the past 6 months to his address alone, 7 of which appeared to have been logged within hours of minor policy changes. The kicker: several of those violations involve things his property didn't even have, like non-regulation garden gnomes and string lights visible past 10 p.m. He didn't even own garden gnomes. Alex widened the scope. He pulled records from his neighbors, quietly using his access to public zoning and complaint databases. And what he discovered chilled him. Minority households had received 3 times as many violations as others. Single parents and elderly residents were routinely cited for non-compliance infractions that were impossible to enforce. The towing company used by the HOA Moss Recovery was owned by Gavin's cousin. And the HOA president, Elizabeth Carrington, had rewritten several policy guidelines without a community vote. A clear violation of Colorado HOA law. This wasn't a petty power trip. This was a system built to punish resistance and funnel money. Alex leaned back in his chair, letting the facts settle, like cold coffee in his stomach. He needed help, but not from the department. He picked up his phone and made a private call. "Lucas Huang," said the voice on the other end, groggy but alert. "It's Alex. We need to talk about the HOA." Lucas had once been the treasurer of the Fairmont Hills HOA. A CPA by trade, Lucas had resigned suddenly 2 months earlier, citing personal reasons. But Alex knew better. Lucas wasn't the type to walk away from anything unless something had gone very, very wrong. They met in a quiet booth at a diner on the edge of town. Lucas looked tired, older than Alex remembered. He hadn't shaved. His eyes darted to the windows as if expecting someone to follow him. "They tried to destroy me," Lucas said, without greeting. "I found the real books, the ones Elizabeth didn't want anyone to see." He slid a flash drive across the table. $87,000 in unaccounted landscaping upgrades. No receipts. No vendor info. And the kicker, that money's been rerouted through a shell LLC. Guess who's on the board? Alex didn't need to guess. Elizabeth Carrington. "They called it community beautification," Lucas said. "But it was just a cover for siphoning funds. Anyone who asked questions got violations. I got 6 in 1 week before I quit." Alex nodded. "And they've escalated since you left." "Of course they have. You moved in. They don't like people they can't control." Alex's jaw tightened. This wasn't just policy overreach. This was organized, targeted financial coercion. Back at his office, Alex sat with a legal pad and began mapping everything out like a case file. Names, violations, dates, cross-references, missing funds. He consulted HOA law specialists anonymously, verifying that many of the new policies were not legally binding. They were policy suggestions passed off as enforceable rules. Worse still, the HOA had blocked several residents from attending public meetings, claiming space limits that conveniently excluded anyone who had previously challenged leadership. It was a fake democracy built on fear, fines, and silence. And that silence, it was ending. By week's end, Alex had what he needed. Evidence, witnesses, a strategy. But he didn't go public. Not yet. Instead, he sent a simple message to every homeowner in Fairmont Hills. "There will be a special community session this Friday night at the HOA Center. Come see who really runs this neighborhood." No threats, no drama, just a quiet storm gathering force. Alex Ramirez wasn't just coming for his car back. He was coming for justice. The room was full, dozens of residents packed into the Fairmont Hills Community Center, murmuring with suspicion, curiosity, and quiet frustration. Folding chairs scraped across the hardwood floor. Some stood along the back wall. A few clutched printed violation notices in trembling hands. At the front of the room sat the HOA board, polished and confident. Elizabeth Carrington wore her usual beige blazer, hair tightly coiled in a perfect bun. To her right sat Gavin Moss, fidgeting in his chair, clipboard in hand, still trying to look important. And then the doors opened. Chief Alex Ramirez stepped in, not in uniform but in a dark blazer, open collar, and a manila folder tucked beneath his arm. Flanking him were two figures, Lucas Huang, former treasurer, and Detective Melissa Quinn from the city's white-collar crimes unit. Elizabeth's confident smile faltered just slightly. "Thank you all for coming." Alex began walking calmly to the podium. "I appreciate you being here tonight. I know many of you think this is just another HOA session, but it's not. Tonight we're here to talk about the truth." A few heads turned. Gavin squirmed. Elizabeth folded her hands calmly. "Let's begin with something simple. Violations," Alex said, lifting a small stack of papers. "Here, we have 43 code violations issued over the past 90 days. 29 were filed against residents from minority backgrounds, 7 against veterans, 5 against elderly homeowners living alone," he paused, "and 0 against anyone who served on this board or contributed financially to its campaigns." Murmurs swept the room. "Now," Alex continued, "you might say that's a coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidences when it comes to power and money." He stepped aside as Lucas plugged in a USB-A screen lit up behind them. Slide 1 HOA funds marked for beautification, $87,000. Slide 2, no invoices, no contractors, no receipts. Slide 3, wire transfers to a company named Sunfield Solutions, LLC. Slide 4, Sunfield's listed officer, Elizabeth Carrington. The room went dead silent. Elizabeth's mouth opened, then closed. Gavin stared at the floor. "That's fraud," Lucas said quietly, "and this isn't just about money. It's about targeting anyone who didn't fall in line." Alex let the silence settle, then nodded toward Detective Quinn. "As of this morning, a formal investigation has been opened by the city. The Fairmont Hills HOA is under audit, and pending further evidence, criminal charges will be pursued." Elizabeth stood, trying to regain control. "This is slander," she said sharply. "You have no legal standing here. This is private property, HOA jurisdiction." Quinn stepped forward. "Actually, Mrs. Carrington, HOA jurisdiction doesn't shield you from state and federal law." "I've done nothing wrong," she hissed. Alex raised an eyebrow. "Then why did your former treasurer resign and file a whistleblower affidavit?" She didn't respond. "And why?" Alex continued. "Did Gavin tow my vehicle 2 hours after a violation was filed? One that doesn't even exist in the official HOA handbook," Gavin stammered. I was just following orders." "Whose?" Alex asked. No answer. A door at the back of the room opened. A city fraud investigator entered, holding a thick binder and walking directly to Alex. He whispered something in his ear. Alex nodded, then turned to the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, the state has frozen the HOA's accounts effective immediately. All operations are suspended pending investigation." The room gasped. A few neighbors clapped softly at first, then louder. Elizabeth stepped back from the table. "You'll regret this, Ramirez. I have lawyers." Alex met her gaze. "Then I hope they're good, because this neighborhood deserves better than corruption, hiding behind fake rules and clipboards." Gavin slinked toward the exit only to be met by 2 uniformed officers. "Hold up," one said, hand on his shoulder. "You're not going anywhere." As Elizabeth was escorted out, the residents of Fairmont Hills stood not in chaos, but in unity. Some were crying, others filming. Most stood in awe. Alex stood before them and said one final thing. "This isn't about me, it's about all of you who were told to sit down, pay up, and stay silent." Tonight, we end that silence together. Later that week, Alex sat on his porch watching as kids rode bikes freely down the street. Lawn signs returned, flags waved again, smiles came more easily. An email pinged on his phone. Subject: HOA whistleblowers. "Can we talk?" from a community organizer in California. Alex smiled slightly, sipped his coffee, and tapped out a response. "Let's bring them down, one board at a time." Fade to black.